welcome you to BeMoreNews.com, the news before the news, where we uncover the truth.
In accent, we need God. Because only God can bring us out of this mess.
All right, good evening, good evening, good evening. My name is Doni, last name's Glover, entered to win it for the long haul, baby. And as you all know, on Tuesday, the 19th of July, the long anticipated Maryland primary goes down. And one of the races that we have been paying close attention to is out in the 10th district. If you've been watching this show and following the developments in Northwest Baltimore County, we're talking about the Liberty Road corridor. We're talking about the 10th state legislative district. Then you know that State Senator Dolores Kelly, after many years of service, has decided not to run for re-election and to step into those shoes, so to speak, is our dear friend, Delegate Ben Brooks. And he has been a longtime supporter of our efforts here at BeMoreNews.com. And so 2 nights away from the election, we are very grateful to have Delegate Brooks with us. And thank you for your service as a member of the U.S. military.
Thank you, Donnie. I appreciate that. Really do. Yeah.
Let's talk about that. You were in Vietnam?
That I was, yeah. That was a very, very unpopular war. Yeah, this was back in '69, and my buddy and I, we weren't getting along too well with our parents. So we decided we're going to fix them. So we went and joined the Army on the buddy plan. Now, mind you, we were sort of good as gone because my draft number was 53. His was 64. So we were good as gone. So we were thinking that we're going to be together through basic, AIT, and station together. Well, that buddy plan lasted 3 days. That was through orientation. We both went to Nam. He was up north in Phu Bai. I was down south in Saigon, and we didn't see each other again until we got back stateside. But thank God we got back. Yeah. But I'll tell you what, I'll bet our parents won't do that again. So they say that neurocortex doesn't fully develop until you're 25. That sort of proved it.
What did you learn in Vietnam?
Well, you know, I wanted to go to school so bad that my first 6 credit hours was taken in Saigon. It was the University of Maryland Global Campus. And I got my first 6 credit hours there, right there in Saigon. Yeah. But I learned, number one, how to maintain and make relationships with comrades. You know, you were dependent upon the other soldier, your comrade, to protect your back. And of course, you wanted to protect his back. And that's what made the system work as well as it did. You know, unfortunately, we weren't shown a whole bunch of love when we got back. But at the same time, working together, you know, and establishing a relationship with your fellow soldiers, it was extremely important. Because back then, when we went over, we didn't go over as a unit. We went over as replacements. You went to replace the guy that got taken out. And unfortunately, we lost like 58,000 comrades in that war. And 47,000 was due to combat. Yeah, I can think of 3 occasions where, you know, I'm here by the grace of God. So I'm thankful for every day. Yeah.
So you have another war right now. You have the political battle of your career happening right now. Tell us about that.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, there are three other individuals who are running for the Senate, as of course as well as yours truly, and I think the closest contender would be Hassan Jalisi. Yeah. I think he probably felt as though I was leading between the two of us. So he has elected to put out some very, very negative and misleading pieces on me, I guess, just to try to gain the political advantage. I just hope that the constituents in the 10th legislative district will not be fooled by this hack information that he's sending out. And the part that disappoints me the most is that there is no credibility here. There's no decorum. He just throwing out information that is truly, truly false.
Okay. For example.
Yes. For example, yeah, he's set out one piece that Ben Brooks, I'm the sole sponsor of HB 1427, and that bill is that I'm going to take away your homes under eminent domain. Well, that bill was introduced, but my portion of the bill did not go through. It went to committee, but the other portion of the bill on the Senate side was Charles Sidnor's. I cross-filed the bill for him. His bill did get passed, but if Jalisa had read the whole bill and saw what passed, he would have realized that the eminent domain portion of that bill was removed. So that argument is moot. So this whole flyer that he's got out by Ben Brooks wanting to take away, Ben Brooks wanting to take away your home is bogus, and
it's not a good picture of you either.
It's not a good picture of me. But what that bill does is primarily it creates the West Baltimore Redevelopment Authority, and what it does, it provides some revitalization in those areas over here, Security Boulevard area, Liberty Road, where additional development is needed, and what SB Senate bill, the Senate side of that bill, what it does, it protects and increases property value. That's what we all want, But
and you are a business owner, so it's not as if you don't understand the needs of businesses. You tell me about your business.
Okay, yeah, I've got an accounting firm that's been in the area 42 years now. Matter of fact, I just sold it to my son in 2017, and now I do consulting work for him. So I understand the plight of businesses. I understand that in order for a community to be thriving, you need a thriving business. If you look back at some of my legislation when I first got in, I have introduced legislation to mitigate taxes on individuals and businesses. I understand that, and I do things to make sure that businesses and individuals are not being soaked. Maryland used to charge up to 25% penalty on late payments of taxes. I got that down to 10%, 5% for the first month, and 10% for the second and any succeeding month. I did that through my second year. Yeah. So I understand the importance of business, and I understand how important it is to make sure that we also mitigate those consequences on individuals.
Now let me get back to the businesses, and I'm going to bring in Kenny in a few minutes, in a moment. But I got to ask you, when it comes to the businesses out Liberty Road, you do deal with, those are your clients, right? They're not just your neighbors. They're your clients, your customers for the past 20, 30 years?
That is correct. Actually, the past, probably, I've been in business on the Liberty Road corridor at least 30 years. Yes. Yeah. And I know quite a few of them. I have conversations with them, and sometimes there are things that they want that we can't quite pull off. But guess what? I listen to them, and eventually we make that happen.
So tell me about that business community out Liberty Road, because that's a very important part that a lot of times on the Democratic side we don't talk about. The business. Right. The business owners, whether it's a beauty salon, a tire shop, a barber shop, a store. You represent the most upwardly mobile part of greater Black Baltimore.
You are absolutely right. The per capita income in District 10 is higher than any other district in Baltimore County. Yeah. Yeah. We've got places like Grind and Wine, which is a thriving business, is doing quite well in my district, and a supporter of Ben Brooks. Comfort Care, they've got a business entity right there is doing quite well in Baltimore County. Collins Seafood was here, but he moved that location because of COVID. But I'm thinking that he eventually might come back over there. So these businesses are thriving in Baltimore County.
Don't get me in trouble. Downtown Southern Blues. I was working with that young man Anthony when he was down on Howard Street. But there are a number of businesses out there, and well, you know what? Let me get to this jugular because I don't want to pull any punches. Are you there with me, Kenny?
I'm here with you, Donnie.
Kenny, I'm trying to say something. What does a Ben Brooks as state senator mean for Liberty Road? What happens if we don't have him? What happens if his opponent gets in there? I mean, would it not be come on, Kenny? Would it not be an embarrassment?
It would be a devastation to the 10th district if that would happen. Only because, again, you point out earlier that we've had a state senator there who was well respected in Annapolis and in her community. He did a lot of hard work. Now, to hand that over to someone who's not even in the same class would be a great loss for our district. It would be like, it would take us back instead of move us forward. So we need to be respected in Annapolis, and I can tell you, they already respect Ben Brooks. And
you've been in Annapolis. You've been in Annapolis. What do they say about Jalisi in Annapolis? Do other people work with him well?
Not at all. Not at all, because of his attitude and the way he deals with not only with his staff, with the lobbyists, and with other legislators. Jalisi, the oftentimes with the bills that he tried to introduce, what he'll do, sometimes he'll take someone else's bill and change a few words in it, and then try to pass it on as his bill. And the people in Annapolis, they do not take kindly to that at all. You got to be creative and come up with your own bill. If you were to read his post-session letter for this year, 2022, he's saying that he has sponsored or co-sponsored 51 bills. You know how many bills Jay got passed in 2022? 0. Yeah. 2021, 0. 2020, 0. 2019, 0. 2018, 0. 2017, 1. I'm sorry, 2017, 0. 2016, he did get 3 bills passed, and 2015, 1. So he's saying that over the term, he's passed 578 bills. 4. See, but what he does, he'll tell his constituents, I either sponsored or co-sponsored. Now, co-sponsoring a bill, all you need is an ink pen. You just tag it onto somebody else's bill.
So look, this is what I want to get to before we wrap this up. Why should people vote for you?
Because I am, number one, I'm respected. I'm respected by leadership. I'm the chief deputy majority whip currently, and I'm the one that the speaker relies on counting votes to make sure those bills pass. Number two, I chair the Public Utilities Subcommittee. I'm on the executive committee of the Legislative Black Caucus, which is the largest Black caucus in the country. I've had a second vice chair position. Now I'm the treasurer of that caucus.
So let me ask you this: what is your vision for the 10th district as state senator?
My vision as state senator, we got this coin, unity in the community, the 10th District Unity Team, that includes the Speaker of the House, Adrian Jones, N. Scott Phillips, a candidate, and Jennifer White, who's also a candidate, and of course yours truly, Ben Brooks for Senate. We will work together very, very, very closely and make sure we bring those resources back to the district that we need. I think we're very fortunate to have a Speaker of the House in our district.
Oh, no question. You have the speaker for the entire state right in your district.
In our district. And I'm a part, and she has endorsed me. I'm a part of that ticket. So I don't think we should pass up this opportunity, you know, and fall for what I call the old okie doke for somebody who will do anything and say anything to get in office. And believe it or not, I'm told that after he put out 2 pieces of negative literature on me, he was in a Black church today, in church with Black congregants.
Kenny, I got to ask you one more time. Are Black people out Liberty Road aware of what happens if you do have a Speaker, Adrian Jones, with a Jay Jalisi as the state senator?
Hey, Donnie, you and I both know. I would love that answer to be, I would love to be able to say that all people know, but all people do not know. And we try our best to inform them, to let them know who this guy is. The deal is, he's 2 people. He's one individual in Annapolis, and when you're on his wrong side, but when he wants something from you, he knows I tell you what, I think he studied this well as a people, because he knows how to come in and ingratiate himself within the community. So this guy is bad news. He's been bad news, but I'm going to say 7, 8 years already, and we can't take another year off.
Yeah,
because it takes the district backwards, because he will not be able to accomplish one thing in Annapolis as senator. They already know they don't like him, they don't want him there, so they're not going to let him be successful. And if he's not successful, that means the district is not successful.
We've just been joined by John Rydell, journalist extraordinaire. Of course, you guys know him, Delegate Ben Brooks, Kenny Brown. Unmute yourself there, John. You got to unmute yourself. I know that put your glasses on thing. Yeah, hit the unmute the mic.
You'd figure I would be able to figure that out by now.
Yep.
Good evening, gentlemen. How you doing?
I'm pretty good.
Hi, Delegate. I'm in the 10th Legislative District, but I'm not allowed to tell you whether I voted for you or not, because then they would think I was a Democrat or Republican. But anyhow, no, I see your signs everywhere, and good to see you.
Okay, John, same here.
John, we're 2 days away from the Maryland primary on Tuesday. What are your thoughts?
You know, I just talked to a couple down the street this afternoon who are registered Democrats, and we were talking about the top 3, Peter Franchot, Wes Moore, and Tom Perez. They said that they would be content with either of those people. I didn't ask them who they voted for, but that's an interesting observation. But for the people, the diehard Democrats, they certainly have their preferences. Obviously, there are other candidates in the race, but it really appears that it's coming down to those 3. And it's all about voter turnout. That's all I can say.
Kenny, speaking of that voter turnout, what's been how are the mail-ins? Are mail-ins more significant in this election than in previous elections?
Hey, Donnie, if we go back a little bit, and I'm very fortunate that I got to experience the mail-in process back in 2020 with the Nkume campaign. Remember, that's when that thing came about. But I believe it is the future, and it's going to change the way elections are done in Maryland forevermore. This time around, the early voting process, The west side of the county, the numbers are always very robust there. Randallstown early voting center used to be the #1 voting center in the state. But I'm telling you, this time around, those polls were very, very light. And I tell you what, and I got a feeling that's going to be the future. Question is, if you can take and get your ballot at home and fill it out and just take it to a box and drop it in, take it to a mailbox or take it to an early voting site and drop it into a mailbox. There. More and more, as people learn of this process, more and more are beginning to use it.
John Rydell, we posted an editorial from Charles Robinson, and one of the things he noted was down in Montgomery County, the changing demographics. There's a burgeoning Latino population, particularly there in the DC suburbs. How is this changing? How are the new demographics changing elections, or are they?
Well, that's where the power is now, the political power. When you look at the past 20 or 30 years, the number of legislative seats in the General Assembly that used to be Baltimore City, more and more they're becoming in Montgomery County and Prince George's County. It reflects the growing population. Montgomery County's population, it's well over, what, 900,000? I think sometimes if you're in the DC area, you get distracted. There's so many other things going on. So it's my opinion, having grown up in Montgomery County, a lot of people just, they focus on federal government or what's going on in DC. So the candidates have spent a lot of time there. Of course, Peter Franchot lives in Tacoma Park. Wes Moore, to a lesser degree, lived there, his first few years of his life. Tom Perez has Montgomery County roots. So I think whoever does really well in Montgomery County is going to have probably the advantage. But we're, again, and you probably already talked about this, we're not going to know the outcome for days.
Right.
Maybe even the following week because, of what happened. And it's unfortunate. I'm not really sure why. I did the mail-in ballot. I did it before. I voted and, turned it, just put it in the mail. And then I got a text saying that they received it. And that's always kind of nice because, when you vote, whether it's in the polling place or something, you are in the back of your mind, you're always, you're saying, I hope it's counted, but you don't know. But at least there was a record that they did receive it. So that's reassuring. But to me, it's all about voter turnout. Are these campaigns getting the people out to the polling place or early voting or with the mail-in ballots? I mean, that's the key, I think, with those three.
Delegate Brooks, are you looking forward to a Democratic governor or Republican governor?
That's a loaded question, Donnie.
How was it under Hogan? How was it dealing with Hogan? Was that easy as a Democrat? Was it unnecessarily difficult? How was it?
I think it was pretty easy. Yeah, in a sense, because of the actual number of the members we had in the House and also in the Senate. A lot of folks say that he was moderate, and to some extent, we'll give him that. But I think we kept him moderate, because of course, if there was a bill that we wanted, and it was vetoed, then what we would do, we'd override it. So I think I was very pleased with the way he handled the COVID, and there were some other things that he did well. But at the same time, I think that balance of government. And the fact that we work together, sometimes fussing and fighting, but I think the numbers in the House and in the Senate sort of help keep him moderate.
John, it's a big fight over there. It's a toss up on the Republican side. They don't know who's going to win, Dan Cox or Kelly Schultz.
Mm-hmm. There was a lengthy article on the front page of the Washington Post today that took a look at that race. and it's pretty interesting because it's the choices to Republicans should be pretty clear. I mean, Kelly Schultz served in the Hogan administration, first as the Maryland Labor Secretary and then as the Commerce Secretary. She's been endorsed by Governor Hogan. And then you have Delegate Dan Cox that was endorsed by President Trump. So to me, I mean, and then you have these ads paid for by what the Democratic Governors Association, basically kind of condemning Delegate Cox. I'm not sure if that's a good idea or a bad idea for the Democrats. I mean, it might prompt more, diehard Republicans or right-leaning Republicans to go out and vote for Delegate Cox. So, I mean, it looks like this race is going to be very close. And again, with this one, we're probably not going to know for like more than a week or so.
Kenny, who do the Democrats want to face, Cox or Schultz?
Well, again, can't speak for all the Democrats, but I believe anybody that wears the Trump tag in Maryland is dead on arrival. So if we want an easy race, let's put Cox up there, because any of the Democrats, any of the top three you're talking about, will be able to take him down, because if he's wearing a T on his chest, it's no go in Maryland for him.
So who do the Republicans prefer to face? Perez, Francho, Moore?
You gotta ask the Republican that, because I know who I want to be there. So if the Republicans are looking at who do I have the best shot at getting my candidate by, out of the top three, I don't know if they'll be able to get. I believe we're going to have a Democrat as governor starting next year. I don't know if Schultz or Cox will be able to get past any of the three they're putting up right now.
John, there's an interesting race. Izzy Patoka and Mr. Fugit, Reginald Lewis's brother, but he's a little late getting to the ball. Izzy Patoka's been posted up with $700,000 in his campaign coffers. But they say Izzy could be warming up for the countywide thing, and Fugit may want to ride and catch those vapors, and in 4 years he could come back. But that's 4 years.
Well, you look at all these people that are running for governor that nobody had heard of, and you wonder, why are they out there? And John Barron, I mean, he was still spending a lot of money on the TV, the campaign ads on TV, very expensive. But yes, you're right. People look down the road. They probably know that they're not going to win, but they are getting name recognition. So 2 years from now or 4 years from now, when they run again, somebody's going to say, yeah, that name sounds familiar. Now, Izzy Patoka, that race, it's difficult to defeat an incumbent. It really is, unless there's some kind of scandal. And there's no scandal with Izzy Patoka that anybody knows of. So, I mean, he probably will win, but, that's a good observation. Will he run for county executive 4 years from now when Johnny O cannot run? And will Mr. Fugit say, okay, well, now I'm going to run for that council seat, and more people will know my name? And this is how a lot of public officials view this. They're not always looking at this election; they're looking at 2 or 4 years down the road.
Ben Brooks, Dr. Cheryl Pastor, she gets a free ride. She gets to walk in the office. Well, what's going on there? Tell me about Dr. Cheryl Pastor.
She's an awesome individual. I think she would have run a very, very competitive race, but she is getting for the most part a free pass on this one, because in 11A, there's no one running against her. No, she has no competition, so to say. But she's still out there,
and that's a testament to her.
Yeah,
because
she's still.
Those who might have considered it had to look at her and say, "Is this somebody we can get past?" And said, maybe this is not the time to take her on.
Delegate, what has Dr. Cheryl Pastor meant to education in Baltimore County?
Oh, she's stalwart. Whoa. Oh man, she is the epitome of sound education. She has educated so many kids. She knows the system inside and out, and she's been on the school board, and she's very much respected in the district and in the educational field. So it's win-win across the board with Cheryl. She's going to be just as an effective legislator as she was educator. So we're very proud that she's going to be in Annapolis.
And a great voice like hers is going to be well received in Annapolis because she is a professional, and she brings a lot of expertise when they talk about education. So a lot of them sitting there who may not know, they're going to find out they're sitting there with somebody who does know. And when she speaks, you listen.
John, since the last time you've been on the show, Roe v. Wade has been reversed. Any thoughts on that?
Well, with the leak of that opinion, it gave a lot of people, pro-choice people, time to mobilize, I guess. But obviously in Maryland, I don't think anything is going to change. And remember, many, many years ago, this goes back 30 years ago, there was the voter referendum in Maryland, and it was on the ballot to essentially uphold Roe v. Wade in Maryland. But now some legislators said, well, maybe we need to do more, put it in the Maryland Constitution or something like that. And there was some discussion about that over the last 2 years or so, or 3 years ago, and it never really materialized. So nothing's going to change in Maryland. But we're already seeing what's happening in other states and how Maryland is going to respond to that. We'll see. But it's also interesting that in the political ads, all of a sudden you're seeing the progressive Democrats talking about that. Senator Chris Van Hollen, and there's some video of him in an event of several years ago that I recall the video being down there. That was on North Howard Street outside of Planned Parenthood. I guess reaffirming, the Roe v. Wade at that time. And then Peter Franchot has some of his ads do that. And of course, Anthony Brown for Attorney General. That's a very effective commercial. I don't know if you've talked about that with Anthony Brown and his wife talking back and forth. And she asks him whether you will uphold a woman's right to choose. And he says, I will. I mean, to me, without commenting on him, I think it was a very effective ad.
On last week's show, they were really riding. Who was it that had the lady on the bicycle with him? Was that John? Who was that?
John Barron?
Barron.
Yeah.
Yeah, Julius Simpson said that was the dumbest commercial in the history of politics. He said, what made that lady get on the back of that bike? We've just been joined by the Honorable Carl Snowden. I'm sorry, John. What were you saying?
Oh, I was just going to say hi to Carl. How you doing, Carl?
John, long time no see. How are you? Kenny,
yes, it's been a while. 40-something, well, go back 40 years. That's frightening.
At least.
Yeah, to downtown Annapolis, yeah.
What do you remember that 40 years ago, John?
Mr. Snowden and Mr. Rydell had a little bit more hair back then, and we were a lot younger. But he was, of course, this is back in the 70s, so very well known as, community activist, I guess, community organizer. I was a young radio reporter, and we would cover Carl at the Annapolis City Council meetings, or there was a sit-in at the State House over an issue that he would have to refresh my memory. But yeah, that's quite a few years ago. I mean, in the 70s.
Absolutely. By the way, the issue was affordable housing.
Okay.
And Delegate Brooks, you'll be pleased to know that prior to the demonstration or the sleep-in at the State House, it was not illegal to sleep at the State House.
Oh, really?
Protest. We timed it to occur on the anniversary of the assassination of Dr. King. The governor at the time was a late Harry Hughes. And yet these people, number of pregnant women, moved in with these sleeping bags, literally. And the bet was on that the governor was going to have these people arrested. And we had to midnight, because at 12 midnight is when it officially came to an end, the General Assembly. And they talked to the Attorney General and this and that. Make a long story short, all 15 families were put up for housing by the state of Maryland. They got them all apartments and later worked it out. So those families were able to move into subsidized housing. But those were the days when people really showed up at the House of Delegates and elsewhere. You remember the late Kenny Webster, John?
I remember him, yes, vaguely, yes.
Yeah. Donnie and I had a discussion today. Most people are unaware of the fact it was Kenny Webster who introduced the legislation that made Dr. King's birthday a state holiday. Maryland was the second state in the nation to make Dr. King's birthday a state holiday. And every member of the Anne Arundel County delegation, with the exception of one person, voted against making Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday a holiday. The only person that voted for it was Republican delegate Ernest T. Allen, who happened to be an African American. Every single person voted against it. And the rationale was it was too expensive.
Wow.
Well, he was a very interesting guy. I do remember him, talking to him very, very early in my career, and a very distinguished physician in Annapolis, soft-spoken, and I guess considered a trailblazer in his day.
Here's an interesting story. As they say, this is not one that will ever be written about, except I've written a book on it, make sure people know the inside story. In 1980, Ronald Reagan won the state of Maryland to be president of the United States. And the chair at the time was that the chairman was Ernest T. Allen, and the other person was Congresswoman, the late Congresswoman, Margaret Holt. And so what the deal was that Ernest Allen, Kenny wanted to be an ambassador because Andrew Young, who had served as ambassador under Jimmy Carter, was called ambassador, he was United Nations ambassador. So he wanted to be an ambassador. He'd been first of many things. Ernest Allen was the first to go from Anne Arundel County to the House of Delegates. He was the first Black to serve in the state Senate from Anne Arundel County, first member of the board. He had all these first. So he wanted to end his career by being an ambassador. So he said to Margaret Holt, here's what I'd like to do. So she said, oh, okay. We won. Anything you want, you can have. He said, well, I just want to be an ambassador. So she said, well, where? Do you want it for Switzerland or Paris? He said, no. Belize. Belize? He said, Belize. She said, why Belize? He said, well, I know it's not going to be a lot of people fighting to be ambassador. I just want to be an ambassador, and I want to do it the easy way. So she said, oh, Paris. Okay, if that's what you want. I mean, you could get bored. That's what you want. You got it. So she goes to the president of the United States, now Ronald Reagan. Everybody's getting these favors done. And he tells a few of his close friends that he's getting this appointment. He was happy, very, very happy. One of the persons he told was a man named Morris Blum, who ran WNN Radio. And the agreement was that he, Mr. Blum, would not share that information until the appointment was made official. So the night we were going to have a celebration party for him, quietly, Ernest came there with tears in his eyes. And if you know Ernest Allen, he never wore his emotion on his sleeve, but he was really upset. It turns out that Marjorie Holt had just told him the unfortunate news. He could not be an ambassador. And when he found out the reason why, he lost it. Here's what happened. In 1980, when Ronald Reagan won the presidency, there was an agreement among the Republicans that nobody who had performed an abortion would be allowed to any appointed position that the Republican Senate controlled at the time. And because he had performed abortions as part of his general practice, he was denied that. And to this day, it's my strong belief, he was so crushed by that. Many of you may not be aware of this. He actually took his own life, committed suicide. He died at the age of 80. But and he had done a lot for the Republican Party. I mean, he was their face. He ran for lieutenant governor.
They got a road named after him down there, right?
Yeah, he was very well liked and respected and admired. There's a road in his honor. He ran with J. Bell as lieutenant governor. Nice guy.
So what does that say, big brother, to the mental health of our elected officials, especially, my God, I mean, I know Marilyn Mosby and Nick Mosby need a therapist as much as they get beat up every day. Just get, it's like having a bully at the end of the block. You expect them to hit you once or twice a month. Yeah, they just hitting you every day. As soon as you go, boom, every day. My God.
I do a lot of studying in history. And I've always wondered how people, and a lot of people are not aware of this, what I'm about to tell you. We live in Anne Arundel County. In this county, most people don't even think about it, but in this county, it's the National Security Agency. It employs more than 30,000 people. And something happened that very few people know, because they don't know the history. The NSA, when it was first created, by its charter, was not allowed to spy on American citizens. By the way, that's changed. But when it was first started in 1947, they couldn't do it. It was written into the charter. In 1964, the then head of the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, got the NSA to do something that they do on everybody, by the way, allies and enemies alike. They do what's called a psychological profile. They look at world leaders and try to determine what they are. So they did one illegally on both Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. And they both came with the same conclusion on these two men. On Malcolm X, some of you know that Malcolm had mental illness ran in his family. His mother was mentally ill. And Martin Luther King Jr., at the age of 8 years old, had a maternal grandmother who died. And he literally jumped out the window. He was in terms of her death. So what the FBI concluded was that if you could put enough pressure on Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, they would commit suicide. That was a psychological profile of them.
No.
And to show you how crazy this story was, in 1964, right after getting this report from the NSA, they sent that infamous letter to Martin Luther King Jr. The letter, which was written anonymously and sent, included a cassette. And on this cassette, you could clearly hear Martin Luther King Jr. having sex with somebody other than his wife. And in this letter they sent to Dr. King, they had indicated to Dr. King that if he did not take his life within 34 days, and they used the days 34 days because in 34 days he will receive the Nobel Peace Prize, they're going to expose him. And you got to remember, in 1964, it's a different world in 1964. Most people thought of Dr. King as the Lord. I mean, they had this, he was on a pedestal. Most people don't know that Martin Luther King Jr. smoked. He drank liquor. People didn't know that. He was a different man privately than he was publicly. So there was this great fear that should they reveal this, it would destroy him. And Dr. King knew there was the FBI and others who had to do it because the way it was gathered. And here's how he discovered it. Dr. King did not find that particular cassette or the letter I was referring to. What happened was it was mailed anonymously to him in his office in Atlanta. And Dr. King was always on the travel, so he got a lot of mail. And nobody opened it. It was just sitting there. His wife one day comes by and the secretary says, "Look, this thing's been sitting here for a while with Dr. King. Why don't you take it?" So she took it home, opened it, and listened. And of course, he called Dr. King, immediately called Dr. King.
Oh, wow.
And they knew they had a very serious public relation issue, because should this get out, they thought it would destroy the movement. Dr. King even at one point talked about what should he do, and all of his close advisors are trying to figure out what to do. Here's what happened. I love this story because it says so much about who we are as a people. They were going back and forth with all these worst case scenarios. And Dr. King went into the bedroom alone, and he did. He was in there about 15 minutes. And they said when he came out of that bedroom, he said it's time to go back to work. And he said he had just finished praying, and that God told him, "Don't worry about anything. I'll take care of it." And while the FBI had did this analysis on Dr. King and Malcolm, they didn't understand, and even to this day, they don't understand what it is when you have a believer, somebody who believes in the superpower created in themselves. And from 64 to 68, he's a whole different man, Dr. King is. Malcolm X literally had the same issues put on him and was given an opportunity. And most people don't know this. Nkrumah offered Malcolm X an opportunity to come and live in Ghana and to just become a free, independent country. And it was Malcolm X who said, the world needs martyrs, and I'm going to be a martyr. And he knew he was going to die. But despite all that, he came back to the United States and was assassinated. So I think that those persons who are under great public pressure, whether it's elected officials or public officials, this is where you find out what people made of. And this is where if you don't have faith, you're not going to survive. Just that simple.
John, let me shift gears. We haven't touched the Katie O'Malley, Anthony Brown race. Any thoughts on that one?
That's I think it's going to be close, but I don't have any data, but I just think Anthony Brown is going to win this race. I'm not sure why. What's interesting is that in all of the ads that you see for Katie O'Malley, you never see Martin O'Malley. You don't see, the former governor, the former mayor of Baltimore. Only William Donald Schaefer has been, mayor and governor. So that's very interesting. And maybe the perception is that maybe he wouldn't help her, the connection. I don't know. I mean, obviously, Katie Curran O'Malley's father is, Joe Curran, who was the longtime Attorney General and Lieutenant Governor. I remember when he was Harry Hughes's Lieutenant Governor in the second term of Hughes's administration. That's very interesting. So I think that there's maybe a little bit of a pushback by some voters for different reasons, perhaps. And I think you may have touched on it. African Americans in Baltimore City maybe are still concerned about some of the policing tactics. I think that you had mentioned that. Others in the state, again, this is pure speculation on my part. So I don't know. I think Anthony Brown is going to win, but by a small margin. But that's just my prediction.
Brooke Learman, Tim Adams.
I don't think that's going to be close. I mean, based on the endorsements that Brooke Learman has gotten, and of course her father is Terry Learman, of the Maryland Democratic Party, a big fundraiser. And she's got, the commercials that she has and the people that are supporting her statewide, from the House Speaker, Adrian Jones, to Angela Alsop-Brooks in Prince George's County, cross-section of people. So it's just, that's my gut feeling. Tim Adams, a very interesting guy, a very interesting background. But when you have, I guess, the connections that Brooke Learman has, I would think that that's going to be a huge advantage.
Kenny, what about that Baltimore County State's Attorney's race?
Schellenberger and Robert Leonard. Well, I'll tell you what, that's a race to watch. I tell you, if Schellenberger hasn't had anyone really come and take him on for a long time, and so he's being tested. And in parts of the county, he's very well liked, but When you get to the west side of the county, his fan base there isn't as large because of some of the things that have happened in the west side of the county. And I'll go back to the Corinne Gaines situation and how he handled that. The young lady who was shot in her apartment by the Baltimore County Police, and for whatever reason, he could not find anything wrong with that, where he could bring about any charges of some kind. So the west side of the community hasn't forgotten that. So it's an uphill battle for him on the west side. But I believe the east side of the county and probably the southwest side of the county, they love him. He's law and order.
I'm sorry, Donnie, if I could add on to piggyback on to what Kenny said, I think the endorsements by Julian Jones, Councilman Jones, and Senator Kelly will build value added for Scott. It's going to help it.
Mr. Snow, I got to ask you, and normally you give us history. Important history we should know. You make me go look up speeches and everything. Every time I get off with you, I got 5 hours of homework to do. But I got to ask you about the future. Who is the future? Who are you looking to carry the ball?
Let me before doing it, can I just piggyback on something we said earlier? First of all, John, O'Malley is a liability for him. We've done the focus groups. It's not by accident that Martin O'Malley's not in that picture. They've done the focus groups. Secondly, I would ask each of you to keep this in mind. We talked about endorsements. Anthony Brown had the endorsement of 2 presidents, Clinton and Obama, 2 first ladies, O'Malley, Michelle, and then, of course, Secretary Clinton, Hillary Clinton, when he first ran for governor against Hogan. Big endorsements. He's huge. We saw how that turned out. Endorsements have their place, but they don't, in my opinion, endorsements no longer have the weight they once carried. That's one point. Second thing I would ask each of you to think about. When the last time we ever had a primary in July? Everything that's being said today is going to turn on one thing and one thing only: turnout. It's not going to be a huge turnout, I'm telling you. This is in July. People are vacationing and the like in July. So I think...
who does it benefit?
Who does it benefit?
Yes.
Incumbents, if you haven't got name and all that. But, again, it's all about turnout, and depending on turnout, it will determine who actually wins. I think for example, Marilyn Mosby, I think, is going to win in Baltimore City, largely because of turnout and who turns out. But to your question, replacement. Let me put it in this context just for a second. We just had a weekend conference here at Morgan State University. All of you know about Chicago and all the killings that's going on in Chicago, right? In Chicago, there are 3 prominent African-American men. One is Minister Louis Farrakhan. The other is the Reverend Jesse Jackson. And the third is Obama, President Obama. What they do not do is what we're doing right now.
Come together.
They don't meet. They don't have these discussions. They don't talk about how they can use their collective wisdom to move for the larger group. So here's what we're trying to do here. And we just had this conference. It's a direct answer to your question. We have started picking up young leaders, people with skills, and using history to teach them what they got to prepare for the future. Because people run for public office, and this irks me to no end. It's one of my, it just irks me. At Prince George's County, we saw Jack Johnson go there. Michael Vaughn. I see a lot of delegates and people went there. Baltimore City. We saw Marilyn Mosby, not Marilyn Mosby, we saw former Mayor Pugh and others caught up in scandal. Now, here's what's not going on. This is what we talked about at Morgan State University. You got young African American students matriculating through political science at Morgan and Bowie State University. Why aren't people taking the time in these political science courses to look at what's happening in real time and have our young people learn from errors that others have made? Mm-hmm. There is a double standard in America. Anybody who don't believe that is crazy in terms of politics. Most people, and John, you are like this because you follow the news. You ask most people, what is the legacy of Pew? And they will tell you her legacy, they will say, is she got caught up in a scandal, took $800,000. And that's the way the book's going to be written, unless somebody else writes the story. And her real legacy is something most people don't even know in Baltimore. Do you know that Pew was the first mayor of any major city to order Confederate monuments to come in? She did that. Hogan followed her leadership when he took the one down in Annapolis in terms of Taney. Most people don't know that. So what we want to try to do is sit down with young people who've got political ambitions in mind, make sure they understand history and understand the mistakes that other people have made. One great mayor that we have, in my opinion, one of the greatest mayors, Doni, you and I talked about this. I'm so proud of the people of Washington, D.C. I'm just proud of them. Marion Barry. The Washington Post did everything humanly possible to destroy him. But his connection with the people was so strong. I was so proud of people in D.C. They put up a statue of Marion Barry on 13th in Pennsylvania. And I knew Marion personally. So I think it's important that we get young people in, make them understand politics. Politics is not a spectator sport. It's a contact sport. And if you're going to get involved in politics, you better be prepared to deal with all that comes with it. And one of the lessons, I think, having served in public office, I know what government can do. There are few people can tell me what the FBI is capable of doing. Can you imagine at 14 years old, the FBI opened up a file on me? Wow. I'm one of the few Marylanders that ever sued the FBI and won.
And they told your mama, don't tell you.
And got the file, to look and see what they had in my FBI files. It helped keep. It's interesting because once I discovered that, I did a lot of things I might have done. I didn't, and so what I want people to understand is that if you're going to get involved in politics, you're going to get involved in government and public service, you've got to be willing. And too many of our politicians today, Black ones included, are too interested in being mini celebrities. They want to be treated like rock stars.
Right.
And this is across the board. Whether it's the mayor or the county exec, I just shake my head. And again, I'm just very frank. I was saying to Doni earlier today, what happened to Quasi? Given what's going on in Baltimore City, not a peep out there.
Who did you say? I'm sorry, who?
Quasi. Quasi who? I mean, PJ, as we call him, Perrin Mitchell, related to people. You can see Perrin down at Lexington Market, anywhere. So I'm really looking forward to new leadership coming forward, but not corporate leadership. I should repeat myself, not corporate leadership. There are more members of the Congressional Black Caucus than ever before. But go and see who's paying for them. See who their donors are. So I'm hoping we get more grassroots people who are more interested in lifting up their community as a whole. In Baltimore City, the city I visit often, I work there, I have never understood. I was saying this to Doni earlier. I had an aunt that lived in Baltimore City. People used to take such great pride in their marble steps. I love that. I come to Baltimore on Monroe Street. You see all these beautiful white marble porches. Gone. And one thing that I give Martin O'Malley credit for initially, I don't know why he stopped this. When he first got elected, he did something I would hope that Scott, as mayor, would emulate. He literally started cleaning up Baltimore streets. Went out with public works people, put on this great effort. Let's clean up this city. And for a little while, people felt better about it. To see their mayor out with public works, trash getting picked up, etc. Now you go to Baltimore, quite honestly, and you can tell communities by where the trash begins and ends.
Well, let me tell you, we have a lot of people that come through, and that's why I'm so much a fan of John Rydell, because John Rydell came to my community, to Sandtown. Kenny, you've been here, but John had no problem coming here. And so even in this governor's race, I'm mindful of the people who come to my neighborhood and those who don't, regardless of what they look like. And I'm telling you, in this governor's race, the one who has come closest to my house thus far has been Kelly Schultz.
And Donnie, I know where your house is. So
John Rydell knows where it is. So I'm a little offended when my council person or delegate or state senator doesn't find my neighborhood worthy of visiting. John Rydell comes here.
You know, Donnie, a lot of people may remember this. Jimmy Carter came to what, Sandtown, Winchester twice?
That's right.
You know, long after he left the White House, involved with Habitat for Humanity. And I don't know whether it was North Fulton or whatever it was. And we went out there, and he just, he wasn't in a suit and a tie and a limousine. He was in one of the houses, supervising rehab or whatever, and his wife was there. And we didn't know where he was. So there's a few reporters were saying, "Well, is the president around?" Like, yeah, we'll go get him. And they bring him out, and he's got work clothes on or whatever, and his wife Rosalind's with him. They said, "Oh, hi, I'm Jimmy." And we're like, "Oh, that's nice." So it was almost like, "Oh, let's go. Can you bring out Mayor Scott to so we can talk to him?" I mean, what president, present or former president, would do something like that now? He could have been on the golf course or whatever. No, he's in Sandtown, Winchester. Right. I mean, we were pretty impressed at just how he just came out and we just chatted. It was really something.
We're almost out of time. Ben, you want to give a final thought?
Well, yes, yeah. What I want to say, especially in the 10th Senate district, I don't want the constituents here, to fall for some of these what I call the rope being perpetrated by Hassan Jalisi. He comes in and he'll give the community music, a little bit of food, and try to fool them, or try to put on this facade that he's the best thing for them. And that's not the case. If you look at his voting record, and if you look at his relationship with other members, and Donnie, that to get anything out of Annapolis, you got to have relationships. Those are the things that allow or help people to get people to support your initiative, your bills. And if you don't have that relationship, you will not be bringing anything from Annapolis back to the district. And that's a given. So, but I'll tell folks what you do. Go to Maryland case search. Google Jalisi Hassan. And I guarantee you'll find 35 cases either against him or ones that he's filed. Most of them, the ones are filed against him. Check
what
that
makes
out.
you a better candidate, Ben?
Say again? What makes me a better candidate? Go to Maryland case search and look up Brooks Benjamin. You'll find nothing. Yes. Morals, integrity, values, and decorum.
And you're a married man. You've been married how long now?
It'll be 48 years in August. 48 years in August. And I'm in here for the people, not for Ben Brooks. I could have retired probably 8 years ago, but I'm in this for the people.
One thing about him, Honorable Carl Snowden, I like a politician that has his own money. You mentioned Pew, there were others. When we have delegates and state senators getting clipped for 15 grand, for 35 grand, it's an embarrassment. You got people out here fighting for the Black community, but then you come out there and somebody clipping 15, 20 grand. That's a smack in the face of those people who are actually doing the work. It's an embarrassment, and I'm ashamed of them. And then when people come home from jail, I know brothers from the streets come home from jail, have a party, but when they start doing this for politicians, what are we telling the children? Kenny Brown, you got the final word before we get out of here.
Well, the final word is we got an election coming up Tuesday. Donnie, you started this off about what I'm hoping the people will start paying more attention about those they choose to send to represent them. Because you send the wrong person and you got to live with them.
Okay, just cut to the chase. They gonna laugh at y'all black people out Liberty Road if Jay Jalisi win.
Well, they've already been laughing at us because he's been in Annapolis representing for the past 8 years. We're the laughing stock in Annapolis already. They want to know what's wrong with us out there, that we send this guy to Annapolis. But this will stop with this election here. Because the choice between Ben Brooks and Jay Jalisi, that's no choice. The choice is that the only candidate right for that job is Ben Brooks.
Good deal. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us this evening. John Rydell, the Honorable Carl Snowden, Delegate Ben Brooks for State Senate in the 10th, Mr. Kenny Brown, publisher of the Northwest Voice. Thank you so much, and we encourage everyone to get out there and vote. Vote for somebody. Vote early, and vote often. My name's Donnie Glover. See you next time.
Hey, Carl.